What's up gamers, Dreamcastguy here, talking today about Pokemon Sword and Shield, because yesterday morning I decided to go out and pick up a copy, and to be honest, I actually regret buying this. Not because the game sucks or because it's a complete dumpster fire, but instead, this is just definitely not a $60 game. Now let me get into that. Real quickly though, I do want to say, unfortunately, right as I started filming this video, I very badly cut my foot, so if I'm making some funny faces in this video, or at some point it looks like I'm sweating a bunch, it's because I am genuinely in a lot of pain, but I'll worry about that in a second. I've got it wrapped up. Maybe I'll show you the wound at the end of the video if you're like a weirdo. But let's get into Pokemon itself. So obviously these are just my first impressions after playing it about 8 hours, and I can say that the game is definitely super easy. This is basically baby's first Pokemon for a variety of reasons, but the biggest one being the #1 gripe I have with this game, which is the fact that there is now a constant EXP sharing system. Whenever you're out in the wild and you're trying to catch Pokemon and level them up, typically grinding is part of the enjoyment. Leveling up your Pokemon and trying to make sure that each of them is definitely maximized to their capabilities and like you're properly prepared for that next gym battle, that is a huge part of the experience. The fact that you can go out there and level up yourself, that is such a fun part. But what they've decided to do this time is every time you're in any encounter, whether it be against another trainer or against a random Pokemon, everybody gets a participation ribbon. Every single Pokemon, even at their super low level, gets a ton of experience points, which basically makes it where as you're traveling around in this game, you are constantly getting power leveled, and I mean to a crazy degree. Pretty much every single encounter I had, I way was stronger than whatever opponent I had to go against, because every fight was just so maximally over efficient. I mean, at times, I would find myself being 3 or 4 levels above even the rival, which is supposed to be like the tough fight in a Pokemon game. This is definitely ultra easy mode, and to me, that's a bit of a disappointment because I'm a very old school Pokemon fan. So when the games first came out, I was a little kid, and what's funny is that since I was very broke and my family was kind of broke as well, we were a very poor family, before I got the games, somebody gave me the strategy guide, and I was always a big fan of strategy guides in general, but what I did with the Pokemon one is that since I had the Pokemon strategy guide 6 months before the games, I studied each and every page, looking at where I could capture stuff, the weaknesses of different opponents, and even things like where the hidden items were, TMs and HMs, and it made me grow a very deep appreciation to the mechanics of Pokemon in general, because knowledge is literally power. Understanding how to defeat somebody is basically how you defeat them, and that to me is a huge part of it. That is the crux of the Pokemon experience. But this time around, it's ultra easy mode. The game, basically, if you fight anybody, it starts to tell you their weakness. If you use water on a fire Pokemon, it will actually mark it in the menus as, hey, from now on, only use this skill because it is super effective. But more than this, the big issue I have is that everything is just so simplified. Do you want to catch some Pokemon? Throw one Pokeball. If they're even halfway weak, congratulations, you caught them. Oh, are you trying to check out some of the new creatures that have been introduced? Well, a lot of them are mega strong, and also, they basically all look the exact way they did on the 3DS. I want to talk about graphics because to me it is hilarious that this is supposed to be a Nintendo Switch game. Come on, this is not really a Nintendo Switch game. I hate to freaking like diss on Game Freak, but this is obviously a 3DS game that they just decided to throw on the Switch. It was not designed from the ground up. The Pokemon look bad. There are times when you're like having a battle and the background is a flat piece of pixel art. There were so many times where I was actually laughing because I could not just even imagine that the game could look this badly. Especially like so many of the textures are clearly meant for a 3DS, but on my big screen, they they look so pathetic. I was actually taking screenshots sometimes just in my capture program because I was laughing so hard. But no place is this more apparent than when it just comes to you actually wandering through the cities when you have some crazy pop-in. Now on a 3DS, you wouldn't notice this as much because the screen is this freaking big. But when suddenly you got a big old bazongo screen like this, or like I was playing, which is up on my big screen, it was so painfully obvious that this game was just not ready to go. Like, this is me just going through a city, everybody is just magically appearing around me, and it is so hysterical because it just looks so fake. But out in the world, it's definitely a lot worse. So basically, this takes place in a new region called Galar, which is basically like the Pokemon equivalent of London. People are sipping tea, and there's like a giant version of Big Bend. It's certainly a very beautiful landscape, and I will say that huge credit to the design artists. Whoever did the concepts for this, it really came out in a fun way. Even though the graphics aren't good, and there's certainly some major resolution issues, I like the fact that Galar feels different. It actually has a very different aesthetic overall that is very, very fun to see after previous Pokemons were basically based in like Hawaii and Japan. So it's really cool to see this more Englishified version. But more than that, I do want to say a huge tip of the hat to the new Pokemon. Now there has been a huge set of the Pokemon that's been cut. Hundreds and hundreds of the Pokemon that you love from the past are totally removed from the game. But the new creatures, the new freshly designed pocket monsters, are fun and very, very unique. Like, this guy here is a corgi, basically, who has an electric butt that is actually charged up by nuzzling. I could not even make this up because it is just so ridiculous. I love that kind of stuff, but the issues that I really have is the fact that the game does not play well. There's tons of frame rate issues, there's lots of technical problems with like the sound being weird, you can't even affect the volume unless you do a side quest and talk to an optional NPC, but the biggest thing I have is by far, I do not like the new open world sections. It sounds so weird because this is the thing that I was definitely the most excited about, but it is a huge downgrade. Basically, there's a new area called the Wild, and whenever you're going through the Wild, you can see all the Pokemon roaming about, and for some reason, there is randomized weather effects. So as you're walking along, Pokemon are just magically appearing in front of you, but more than this, there's also just a thunderstorm next to a snowstorm next to a bright shiny day, and none of it really makes a dang bit of sense. Now, most of us would probably think that this would be the most enjoyable aspect of the whole Pokemon game because this is where you can catch the strongest Pokemon and do the multiplayer elements, but this is actually the very worst part of the game. The wilds are so obviously incomplete. They're big, they're empty, they just have some of the worst freaking frame rate issues, but more than that, they're just strange. And this is weirdly the only time you can actually use the other stick. So for the rest of the game, whenever you're running around and stuff, the right stick does nothing. You can run around with the left stick, like control your character, but since it has fixed camera angles for some bizarro reason, only in the wilds are you able to free aim, and that's when you notice that pretty much everything around you is a freaking joke. There is just so many technical problems that are definitely what dragged us down, but I think that at times I was able to enjoy myself to a very severe degree. Like, one of the new things they've introduced is Dynamaxing, where basically there are times when you can do giant boss battles with multiple Pokemon trainers, where you'll be going along and suddenly there is like these charged up rune things, and by connecting to it, you and some online players, whether you're friends or they're strangers, can go against a supercharged 10 times the size Pokemon that has super abilities. So each of you take turns attacking it, and you need to try and defeat it as fast as possible, or Dynamax yourself to fight back. This kind of stuff is cool, but you still kind of just have to laugh about the backgrounds because pretty much all of these take place in giant empty voids. Pokemon Sword and Shield should not be $60. This is a 3DS port with some new fresh faces. That's it. I hate saying that, but really, this game is ultra easy mode. It basically doesn't have a story. It's just you and your childhood buddy being like, we're going to be the very best Pokemon trainers, and then walking from town to town. In my opinion, and I'm about to say something that's going to make every Pokemon fan mad at me, This is the Mass Effect Andromeda of Pokémon. We expected it to be a giant leap because it was the next console generation. It was going to be a chance to take the Mass Effect series with all of its established lore and cool themes and take it into a different direction, really expanding it, and instead it just kinda was blah. That, in my opinion, is completely what's going on with Pokémon Sword and Shield. These games they're not trash, they're not terrible, they're certainly games, but in my opinion, this is just like a 7 out of 10 experience. It's okay, it's alright, and if you manage to get it like for free in your stocking for Christmas, that's great, but you should not be buying this for full price. I badly regret buying this, and in fact, I'm probably going to give it away to my fiancée because she's been trying to get into Pokemon. Thanks so much for watching, gamers. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and please give this video a like if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you haven't already, and do me a giant favor and keep dreaming. Alright, do you want to see my cut foot? I honestly am not feeling great from blood loss right now. Alright, I'll show you my terrible foot. Alright, let's see if I can do this. Oh man, this is going to be bad. Alright, here we go. Oh, I'll show you. This is the shirt I've had wrapped around it. Oh, I guess I'll stand up. Oh god. Oh god. Okay, yes, I'm bleeding pretty bad. That's all right. Oh my fucking. Oh god. All right, I'm gonna go drink some orange juice and try and disinfect it. I stepped on glass. Oh my god, it hurt. Oh god, I'm bleeding on the floor. Okay, well, I'm gonna edit this video. Thanks so much for watching that video. If you want to see something else, you can always click this link to see what I put up last, or, you know, subscribe and see what's coming up next. Also, I promise that whatever I do, it'll try not to suck.